Dawn is still bleeding gray across the Normandy sky, July 26, 1944. 3 miles south of St. Lo, the bocage stands thick and wet, like green walls built by giants. Staff Sergeant Frank Novak climbs out of his tent. The air bites cold. His breath makes small white ghosts. He walks across the muddy field to his Sherman M4A1, Lucky Strike. The tank sits low and ugly and beautiful all at once. White letters, Lucky Strike, painted on the long 75mm barrel. A joke from his loader, Jamie Walsh, who said, "Every shot is either a strike or they strike us." Frank lights a Chesterfield. The match flares orange against his tired face. 33 years old, looks 50. Detroit factory grease still under his fingernails, even after 3 weeks of Normandy mud. He helped build these tanks. Back home, Chrysler Arsenal, 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, watching Shermans roll off the line, one every hour. 5 Shermans for every Tiger, the foreman said. We can't make them perfect, but we can drown them in numbers. Now he is inside one of the 5, and the numbers feel different when you're the one who might get drowned. Captain Morrison gave the order last night at 3 in the morning after Frank showed him the notebook drawings. Simple lines, angles, timing marks. 3 tanks moving separate lanes, hitting one Tiger from 3 sides at once. Morrison rubbed his eyes, said, "Sergeant, if this goes wrong, 9 men die, and it's on you." Frank said, "Sir, if we follow the book, 9 men die anyway, and it's on all of us." Morrison stared at the sketches long enough for the lamp oil to burn low, then nodded. "One try, at 0600. You get Rawhide 4 and Rawhide 5. Frank found Lieutenant David Chen and Staff Sergeant Miguel Rodriguez before the stars faded. Chen was cleaning his Colt 45 by candle, Rodriguez writing a letter home to his 4 girls in Laredo. Frank spread the map on a footlocker, drew the 3 paths with a grease pencil, said, "We call it Texas two-step, Miguel. You take the middle, throw smoke at 200 yards, blind him. David and I swing wide left and right. 30 miles an hour, full throttle. We hit the flanks at the same second. Tiger turret turns slow. 30 seconds with power, 60 by hand. We give him 3 threats in 15 seconds. He can only face 1. Rodriguez looked up slow. "Texas two-step, Frank. That's a dance for 2 people. We got 3 tanks." Frank smiled, tired. "We improvise." Rodriguez closed his letter, folded it, slid it into his breast pocket, said, "My girls think I drive trucks in England. If I die dancing, at least it's a better story." Chen ran his finger along the map paths, said timing has to be perfect. 1-minute window, or the first tank to arrive eats an 88 alone. Frank tapped his watch. "We sink at 0555. Radio checks every 30 seconds. We move like clockwork." Jamie Walsh sat quiet in the corner, Bible open on his knee. He drew 3 tiny Shermans circling one big Tiger in the margin with a pencil stub. Said, "Lord, if David can kill Goliath with a stone, maybe 3 Davids can kill 1 Goliath with geometry." Frank clapped his shoulder, said, "Amen, kid. Now load 89 rounds of high explosive. We got a date with destiny." Now 0555 hours. The sky is pale rose in the east. Engines cough and roar to life. Lucky Strike shakes herself awake. Continental radio growling like an angry bear. Frank climbs the front glacis, drops into the commander's seat. The hatch clangs shut behind him. Inside smells of oil, sweat, coffee, cordite, fear. Driver, Corporal Pete Kovacs from Chicago, ex-mechanic, turns his head, says, "Ready, Sarge." Frank thumbs the intercom. "All stations. Rawhide 2, checking in." Jamie, at gun, ready. Loader, ready. Assistant driver, ready. Kovacs, ready. Frank switches to battalion net. "Rawhide 4, Rawhide 5. This is Rawhide 2, radio check." Chen answers, "Rawhide 4, loud and clear." Rodriguez, "Rawhide 5, 5 by 5. Frank says, "Sync watches. Mark 0556. Good hunting, boys. See you on the other side." He lights another cigarette. The smoke curls blue when the dim red combat light inside the turret. Jamie wipes the breech of the 75 with a rag that used to be white, says, Sarge, you sure about this? Frank exhales slow. Jamie, back in Detroit, I fixed jammed assembly lines by changing the angle of one conveyor belt. Saved Chrysler $10,000 a week. Angles work on machines. They work on Tigers too. Jamie nods slow, closes his Bible, tucks it under his seat, says, then let's change some angles. Kovacs throws the Sherman into gear. Tracks bite mud. Lucky Strike lurches into the narrow lane between two hedgerows, 8 feet high, thick as stone walls. Visibility 50 yards, maybe less. Frank stands in the cupola, wind whipping his face, cold, wet leaves slapping the turret. The plan lives or dies in the next 6 minutes. 0600 exactly. 3 Shermans roll out, 3 separate lanes, engines screaming. 28 miles an hour, way faster than doctrine allows in Bocage country. Frank counts seconds in his head like rosary beads. 30 seconds in, Rodriguez' voice calm as Texas Sunday. Rawhide 5, starting front run now, throwing smoke. Frank pictures it. Miguel breaking into the open field, 400 yards from the Tiger. 2 white phosphorus rounds arc high, burst into thick white clouds swallowing the German hiding spot. 0602, the world cracks open, sharp, hard. German 88 shell screams overhead, explodes harmless 15 feet behind Rawhide 5. Rodriguez whoops over the net, missed by 15 feet, still closing, still alive. Frank grins savage. Good boy, McGill. Now the German is blind. 0603, Lucky Strike smashes through a hedge gap, branches explode across the bow. Frank ducks, splinters wood and leaves rain inside the turret. 600 yards dead left of the Tiger, he sees it now. Iron ghost, gray monster, half hidden in shadow, long gun already swinging slow toward the smoke where Rodriguez plays decoy. Frank slams the intercom. Jamie, target, side armor, 600 yards, traverse left, steady on. Jamie voice steady for the first time in days, on target. Frank fire, loader rams the round, breech clangs shut. Jamie yanks lanyard. The 75 recoils hard, muzzle flash lights the inside of the turret orange. The shell screams out. Frank watches through binoculars, strike just behind the driver's hatch. Sparks fly white, hot metal showers. The Tiger staggers, but the side armor, 80 millimeters, holds. It still lives, still turns its turret toward Lucky Strike, 30 tons of hate, swinging slow but sure. Frank screams, reload, reload fast as you can. The loader sings out, up! Jamie traverses fine, aiming again, but the big 88 is almost on them. 3 more seconds, and Lucky Strike becomes another burning coffin. Then 0604. The right flank explodes open. Lieutenant Chen, Rawhide 4, perfect timing, 500 yards, hard right. His first round slams into the turret ring, 60 millimeter weak spot. Metal screams, the massive turret jams, halfway frozen between threats. Karl Brandt inside the Tiger knows the geometry just flipped. He shouts in German, abandon tank now. 9 American shells in 15 seconds hammer the Tiger from 3 sides. One penetrates the engine deck. Fuel ignites, fire roars up, black smoke pours into the morning sky. Hatches bang open, 5 Germans climb out, hands high. Karl Brandt last, uniform smoking, eyes calm. He stands beside his dying tank and watches 3 Shermans circle like wolves. Frank drops from Lucky Strike, Thompson submachine gun in hand, walks forward, mud sucking at his boots. 50 yards, 30, 20. Karl raises his hands. Frank stops, 10 feet away. 2 engineers staring across a burning machine. Frank says in broken German, Sie sind gefangen. Karl answers English slow. You beat me with speed and angles, not armor. Frank nods. Detroit taught me angles. Karl almost smiles. Henschel taught me armor. We both learned something. Behind them the Tiger explodes again. Ammunition cooking off. The blast wave knocks both men back a step. Frank looks at the radio in his hand. Battalion net screaming. Another Tiger. 2 miles east. Rawhide 6 and 7 burning. Crews dying. He looks at Karl Brandt, the enemy who just lost everything, and makes the choice in one heartbeat.
Frank holsters the Thompson, grabs Carl Brandt by the elbow, pulls him toward Lucky Strike. The enemy officer does not resist, wrists still zip-tied in front. Crew stares wide-eyed. Jamie mouth open, Bible forgotten. Kovacs leaning out driver's hatch. "What the hell, Sarge?" Frank shoves Carl up the bow plate, says, "He's coming with us." Jamie stammers, "Sarge, he's the enemy." Frank snaps, "Enemy just lost his tank, and we got 2 more tigers killing our boys right now. He knows where they hide. Get him inside." Carl climbs the turret, awkward with tied hands. Frank follows, slams the hatch. The inside of Lucky Strike suddenly crowded with German uniform and American fear. Carl wedged between Frank and Jamie, smelling of burnt oil and cordite. Frank thumbs the battalion net. "Rawhide 7, this is Rawhide 2, we are OSK to Q."
He moves, Frank says. "Then we got 8 minutes to dance again." Carl looks up, eyes sharp. "The same dance?" Frank nods. "Texas two-step. But this time you called the music." Carl almost smiles. Bitter. Tells Kovacs, "Take the left lane hard. Stay off the main road. Chen will take right lane. Rawhide 7 will play decoy again. But this time no smoke until I say we catch him looking the wrong way." Lucky Strike roars east. Tracks throwing mud, 28 miles an hour. Again, Chen 50 yards behind. Radio silent. Crew tense. Jaime keeps carbine pointed at Carl, but the German ignores it. Stares forward through the vision slot, muttering ranges under his breath. 1,200 meters. 1,000. Frank says loud for the intercom, "Everybody listen up. Our passenger is Oberleutnant Karl Brandt, 47 kills. He is going to tell us exactly how to kill his friends. When he speaks, you obey fast or we all die. Clear?" Heads nod. Kovacs says clear. Jaime whispers clear. Loader says clear. Frank looks at Carl. "Your turn, Herr Oberleutnant." Carl speaks calm, perfect English. "Tiger will be waiting, facing west, expecting another frontal attack. He will have 1 lane covered perfectly, the other 2 blind from hedges. We give him what he expects at first, then change the music. Rawhide 7 will advance straight down main lane, slow like doctrine says. Tiger will traverse turret to face him at 800 meters. Rawhide 7 fires smoke, not to blind, but to make Tiger think it is the same stupid attack again. When Tiger turret commits west, we break cover. I go left with you, Chen goes right. We hit side and rear before he can swing back. 30 seconds is all we need." Frank repeats into battalion net. "Rawhide 7, this is Rawhide 2. New plan. You advance slow, main lane. At 800 meters, fire smoke, then floor it straight at him. Do not stop, do not turn. We will flank the second he commits." Rawhide 7, voice stronger now. "Copy Rawhide 2. Whatever you got, do it fast. We are down to 1 tank and burning men." Lucky Strike tears through another hedge. Branches whip the turret. Carl braces hand on the breech, says, "Now slow to 20. We are in his blind arc." Frank relays. "Kovacs, ease off. 20 miles an hour. Chen, match speed. Radio silence now." They roll quiet as a Sherman can. Quiet engine growl muffled by thick bocage. 8 minutes become 6. 6 become 4. Ahead through the trees, Frank sees it. Another Tiger, hull down on the rise. Long gun pointing west, exactly where Carl said. Rawhide 7 appears far down the main lane, crawling like doctrine teaches. 30 tons of bait. Tiger turret swings slow, majestic toward the new threat. Carl whispers, "Now, smoke." Rawhide 7 fires 2 white phosphorus rounds. Thick cloud blooms. Tiger gunner traverses faster, thinking, "Here they come again, the same fools." Frank counts. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Carl says, "Now, full throttle, left lane, break cover." Kovacs slams the pedal. Lucky Strike leaps forward. 32 miles an hour. Chen mirrors right side. Both Shermans explode from the hedges like hornets from a kicked nest. Tiger commander realizes too late, shouts in German, "Flankers! Flankers! Driver, reverse! Turret, traverse east!" But 56 tons do not dance fast. Tracks spin mud. Turret moving too slow. Carl leans into Frank's ear, loud over engine roar. "Side armor, 800 meters, hit just behind the turret. That is ammunition, ready rack." Frank screams, "Jaime, target, 800 meters, side armor, fire!"
Jaime traverses smooth, pulls lanyard. The 75 barks. Shell screams out, strikes exactly where Carl said. Massive orange flash. The Tiger shudders but keeps moving. Engine still alive. Carl shouts again. Rear armor, thinner. Hit the engine deck. Frank relays. Chen, tick the rear shot, now. Chen Sherman, 500 yards, hard right. First round penetrates engine grill. Fuel ignites. Fire pours from vents. German crew bails fast, hands high. Again, second Tiger in 20 minutes. Second perfect dance. Frank pulls Lucky Strike to a stop, 30 yards from the burning hulk. Drops the hatch, climbs out. Carl follows, hands already retied for show. British infantry appear from nowhere, cheering. Yanks just brewed up another cat. Lieutenant Powell, from the Firefly earlier, walks up grinning. Bloody brilliant again, Sergeant. You lot writing a new textbook? Frank looks at Carl, says, No, sir, he is writing it. Powell sees the German officer tied, raise his eyebrow. Frank says, Long story short, he hates bad tactics more than he hates us. Powell laughs, offers cigarettes all round. Carl takes one, lights it with shaking hand. Frank asks quiet, How many more Tigers in this sector? Carl exhales, smoke slow. 2, maybe 3, but they will fall back now. Word spreads fast. 2 Tigers gone in one morning by the same trick. They will not sit still anymore. Frank nods, turns to his crew. Jaime standing there, Bible in hand, eyes shining. Kovacs grinning like a kid. Loader punching the air. Chen pulling up beside them. All alive, all whole. Frank feels something loosen in his chest, like a fist finally opening. He looks at Carl Brandt, the enemy who just saved American lives, and says, You know, when this is over, you and me, we build bridges instead of burning tanks. Carl looks at the 2 smoking Tigers, then at the Normandy sky turning blue and says, Yes, Sergeant Novak, bridges sound very good right now. Radio crackles, hard, Captain Morrison voice cutting through the smoke. All units, Tiger confirmed moving, grid, Romeo 8-2, heading north, fast. Looks like he smelled the trap. Fall back to phase line Apple. Do not engage. Frank grabs the handset. Morrison, this is Rawhide 2. We just brewed up number 2. We are hot on ammo and fuel, but crew is good. Let us chase. Morrison hesitates long second, then says, Negative, Rawhide 2. You are ordered to fall back. Infantry will screen the retreat. Frank looks at Carl Brandt. The German shakes his head slow. Says, If he runs north, he will link with the 3rd Tiger at Coutances. They will form a pair, and your infantry will die. Frank looks at his crew. Jaime wiping soot from his face. Kovacs checking fuel gauge, half tank. Chen leaning in from his hatch, eyes asking the question. Frank thumbs the mic again. Sir, permission to pursue with Rawhide 4. We have a guide who knows exactly how they think. Morrison voice tired but sharp. Who the hell is your guide? Frank says, Oberleutnant Carl Brandt, late of Iron Ghost. He is volunteering. Morrison swears loud enough for the whole net to hear, then says, Jesus Christ, Novak, if you get yourself shot with a kraut in your turret, I will haunt you. Do not get surrounded. Acknowledged. Frank grins, switches off battalion net, turns to Carl. How far to Coutances? Carl studies the map. 20 kilometers, cross-country. Maybe 40 minutes at full speed if we cut the lanes. Frank says, Kovacs, can you give me 35 on these roads? Kovacs laughs. Chicago streets were worse, sir. Hold on. Frank intercomes. Chen, stay on my 6. We are hunting the last cat. Carl says, he will try to reach the Coutances road bridge. If he gets there first, he blows it, and the whole division stalls. Frank nods. Then we don't let him get there. Lucky Strike and Rawhide 4 roar north, engines screaming, tracks chewing Normandy to pieces. Farmers dive into ditches as 2 Shermans blast past orchards and stone walls. Carl braced against the turret wall, shouting directions. Left lane here. No, the sunken road. Right hard turn. Now. Kovacs wrestles the tillers. Lucky Strike slides sideways like a drunk boxer, but stays upright. They are moving faster than any Sherman has any right to move in Bocage country. 34, 35 miles an hour. Frank standing in copula, wind tearing at his jacket. Carl pointing ahead. There, see the dust column? That is him. He is moving. Frank grabs binoculars. Yes, gray shape 2 kilometers ahead. Long gun bouncing. The 3rd Tiger, running for his life. Frank says, Chen slows the gap. We box him before the bridge. Carl shakes his head, says he knows these fields better than you. He will turn east into the forest, try to lose you. Frank says, then we make him turn where we want him. Chen, pull ahead, take the right fork, force him left into the open meadow. I will push center. Carl nods, clever, he has no cover there. Chen accelerates, rawhide force surges past, takes the fork hard. The tiger ahead sees the split, reacts, turns left exactly as planned into a wide meadow. No hedges, no escape. Frank whoops like a cowboy. Kovacs floor it, we got him in the open. Lucky Strike charges into the meadow, grass whipping the tracks. Tiger now 800 meters ahead, trying to swing his hull for a shot, but running and aiming is hard, even for German precision. Carl leans close to Frank. Shoot the tracks now, cripple him. Frank screams, Jaime track shot, left side, fire! Jaime traverses down. The 75 barks. Shell screams out. It strikes exactly where Carl said. Massive orange flash. The tiger shudders but keeps moving. Engine still alive. Carl shouts again, rear armor, thitter, hit the engine deck. Frank relays, Chen, take the rear shot, now! Chen's Sherman 500 yards, hard right. First round penetrates engine grill. Fuel ignites. Fire pours from vents. German crew bails fast, hands high. Again, second tiger in 20 minutes. Second perfect dance. Frank pulls Lucky Strike to a stop, 30 yards from the burning hulk. Drops the hatch, climbs out. Carl follows, hands already retied for show. British infantry appear from nowhere, cheering. Yanks just brewed up another cat. Lieutenant Powell, from the Firefly earlier, walks up grinning. Bloody brilliant again, Sergeant. You lot writing a new textbook? Frank looks at Carl, says, no, sir. He is writing it. Powell sees the German officer tied, raise his eyebrow. Frank says, long story short,
Clapping Frank on the back, 3 tigers in one morning, Sergeant. You are writing the bloody history books. Frank looks at Carl, says, no, Lieutenant. We both are. Powell offers a bottle of Calvados, stolen from some farmhouse. They pass it around. Even Carl takes a pull. The apple brandy burns warm. Captain Morrison arrives in a jeep, face gray but eyes proud. Novak, you disobeyed a direct order. Frank salutes. Sir? Yes, sir. And I would do it again. Morrison looks at the 3 smoking hulks, then at Carl, then back at Frank. Shakes his head. Hell of a thing, Sergeant. Hell of a thing. He turns to Carl. Oberleutnant, you just saved a lot of American lives today. Carl shrugs. I saved a lot of German lives too, sir. Stupid orders kill everyone. Morrison nods slow, turns to Frank. Your Texas two-step is going to Shave headquarters tonight by courier. Every tank commander from here to the Rhine is going to learn it. Frank says, sir, credit where it's due. Morrison looks at Carl again, then back at Frank. Credit goes to the men who lived to use it. Dismissed. The crew gathers around, Lucky Strike passing the Calvados. Jamie opens his Bible, shows the little drawing. 3 Shermans around 1 tiger. Now he adds 2 more circles with X marks and writes beneath it, July 26, 1944. The day geometry beat monsters. Frank takes the bottle from Kovacs, drinks deep. Looks at Karl Brandt standing quiet, watching the fires die. Says, you know, Herr Oberleutnant, when we get to Germany, first round's on me. Carl smiles real this time, not bitter. When you get to Germany, Sergeant, the first bridge we build together is on me. And the morning sun finally burns through the Normandy clouds, and for one small moment, the only smoke is from cigarettes and Calvados, and the war feels almost human. The sun is high now, July 26th, still the same impossible day in Normandy, air thick with apple brandy smoke and burning panzer fuel. Lieutenant Powell claps Frank on the shoulder again, says, Sergeant, the 7th Armored is buying your crew dinner tonight in Isigny. Real eggs, real steak, none of this bully beef rubbish. Frank laughs tired, says, Lieutenant, we still got a war to fight. Powell grins, work and wait till after pudding. Captain Morrison's jeep skids up, dust flying. He jumps out waving a teletype flimsy, eyes wide. Novak, get your ass to division headquarters now. General Rose himself wants the man who killed 3 tigers before lunch. Frank looks at his crew, mud-covered, soot-black, alive. Says, sir, my crew comes too. Morrison nods, pile in the jeep.
Lucky Strike and Rawhide, too, left parked under apple trees, guards posted like they are sacred relics. The ride to division is 20 minutes of bouncing hell. Morrison driving like a madman. Frank, Chin, Rodriguez, Jaime, Kovacs crammed in back. Carl Brandt riding shotgun, wrists tied again, for appearances only. Morrison muttering the whole way. Bradley is screaming for this tactic. Rose wants it named, patented, and shipped to every army yesterday. They arrive at a chateau flying the 3 white stars of First Army. Guards snap salutes. Inside, maps cover every wall. Staff officers running like ants. General Jarrow meets them first. Shakes Frank's hand hard, says, "Sergeant, you just saved the breakout." Then leads them to a long table. Major General Leonard Jarrow, Major General Maurice Rose, both corps commanders standing there. Rose, tall, thin, Oklahoma dust still on his boots, looks Frank dead in the eye. Says, "Staff Sergeant Novak, tell me exactly how you killed 3 tigers with 2 shermans and a prayer." Frank spreads his grease pencil map from Lucky Strike, starts drawing the lanes, the timing, the smoke, the angles. Carl standing quiet beside him. Rose notices the German uniform, finally says, "Who the hell is this?" Frank says, "Sir, this is Oberleutnant Carl Brandt, former commander, Iron Ghost, 47 kills. He drew half the angles that saved us." Rose stares long second, then sticks out his hand. Brandt shakes it firm. Rose says, "Lieutenant, you just switched sides at the perfect damn time. Welcome to the winning team." Carl nods slow. "Thank you, General. I prefer winning with intelligence to losing with pride." Rose turns back to Frank. "This Texas 2-step, it works on King Tigers too?" Frank looks at Carl. Carl answers, "Yes, General, but you need 4 Shermans then. The turret traverse is the same weakness. Side armor still 80 millimeters, rear still paper." Rose grins wide like Christmas. "Write it up, Sergeant. Every detail. Timings, radio calls, fallback plans, everything. By tonight, it goes to Schaeff. Tomorrow, it is doctrine." Frank salutes. "Sir." "Yes, sir." Rose claps his shoulder. "One more thing, son. You are promoted technical sergeant effective now. And your crew gets silver stars. All of them, including the German if we can figure out how to pin it on him." Laughter ripples around the room. Even Carl smiles thin. Back at the field hospital tents, Jamie gets his hand stitched where a splinter caught him. Rodriguez writes his letter home, finally able to say Daddy danced with tigers and won. Chin cleans his glasses, staring at the sky. Kovacs drinks coffee strong enough to float a piston. Frank sits on a crate writing the after-action report in handwriting, the pages that will change armored warfare forever. Carl sits across from him, untied now, guards relaxed, drinking real coffee from a tin cup. Frank says, "You know, Carl, when I was building Shermans in Detroit, I hated the Germans building better tanks." Carl says, "And when I was building Tigers at Henschel, I hated the Americans for having so many. Now I think we both just hated the waste." Frank nods slow. Waste of men, waste of machines, waste of years. Carl looks toward the channel where the Mulberry Harbor still unload more Shermans every hour. Says, "Your factory's won, Sergeant. Quantity became quality when you added brains." Frank laughs bitter. "Not my brains, yours too." Carl shrugs. "Brains do not care about flags, only about angles." Evening falls. The crew eats steak and eggs in Isigny with the British 7th Armored. Powell toasts 3 Tigers, one morning. Texas 2-step forever. Rodriguez raises his glass. "To my 4 girls who will never know how close Daddy came to winning." Jamie quotes Psalms about the Lord delivering from the paw of the lion. Chin just smiles quiet. Kovacs drinks coffee, strong enough to float a piston. Frank sits outside the cafe watching Normandy stars come out. Frank offers a Chesterfield. Carl takes it, lights it from the same match. Frank says, "You ever think the war could end with 2 factory men just deciding not to kill each other anymore?" Carl exhales smoke slow. "Every day, Sergeant. Every day since Tunisia." Frank nods quiet. "Tomorrow we push to Coutances, the road to Paris." Carl says, "And after Paris, Berlin." Frank says, "And after Berlin," Carl finishes, "Bridges, Sergeant. Big ones across the Rhine, maybe even across the Elbe. Frank laughs real for the first time in months. Deal, Herr Oberleutnant. First round still on me. Karl lifts his coffee cup. First bridge on me. They clink 10 against 10 under Normandy stars, and somewhere far off, artillery rumbles like distant summer thunder. But for one small night, the only fire is in cigarettes, and the only dance is two enemies planning a future that does not include burning tanks. Next morning, July 27, 1944. The push to Coutances begins like an avalanche. First Army rolls forward. Lucky Strike repaired, refueled, rearmed, 89 fresh rounds in the racks, new track blocks gleaming. Frank promoted technical sergeant now, Silver Star ribbon still being sewn on by a grinning quartermaster. Karl Brandt officially prisoner, but walking free with a borrowed American jacket over his German uniform. No one dares question the man who helped kill 3 tigers. The Texas two-step is already mimeographed on yellow paper, heading to every tank battalion from Utah Beach to the Sign. Captains and lieutenants study the sketches like holy scripture. Frank rides in Lucky Strike again, but this time battalion wants him up front teaching as they go. A platoon of 5 Shermans now follows his every radio call. Rawhide 2, actual, has become a school on tracks. They roll south through broken hedgerows, past yesterday's burning tigers, now cold black skeletons, German prisoners marching the other way. Some salute Karl as they pass. He nods back, face unreadable. 10 kilometers out, scouts report another tiger blocking the road. This one dug in, hull down, covering a stone bridge. Frank grabs the mic. All Rawhide elements. This is Rawhide 2 actual. Texas two-step +1. We got 5 dancers now. Execute. Chin takes leftmost lane, Rodriguez center smoke decoy. 2 new Shermans, Rawhide 8 and 9, swing wide right. Frank rides center left with Lucky Strike. They move like they have rehearsed for years, though most crews only read the paper last night. The Tiger opens fire first. Shell brews up a half-track far behind, but the Shermans are already splitting lanes. Smoke blooms. The Tiger turret commits center. Frank counts 15 seconds. Then all 5 Shermans converge from 5 angles. The Tiger lasts 18 seconds before the engine deck erupts. No crew escapes this time. The bridge is theirs by 9:30. Coutances falls by noon. The whole German line cracks like old plaster. The breakout is real now. Cobra is roaring. St. Lo to Avranches in 4 days instead of 4 weeks. Frank and his crew roll into Avranches August 1st. Flowers in the gun barrel, children cheering, GIs handing out chocolate. The town square becomes an open-air classroom.
Brandt Doctrine. Some wise guy shortens it to No Brandt Doctrine, and it sticks. September comes. The Fireflies arrive in numbers. 17-pounder guns that punch through Tiger front armor at 1,000 yards. The long dance is almost unnecessary now, but the principle lives. Speed, angles, coordination. Brains over brute steel. Frank gets orders to report to Fort Knox, stateside instructor for the new armored school. Karl gets orders too. Red Cross packet, prisoner exchange for technical advisors. He will go to England, then Canada, teach Allied officers everything about panzer weaknesses before the final push into Germany. The night before they ship out, the crew throws a party in an abandoned chateau outside Avranches. Candles and wine bottles, Calvados flowing. Yami reads psalms. Rodriguez dances with a French girl. Chan writes equations on the wall. Kovacs sings until he cries. Frank and Karl stand on the terrace watching searchlights over the channel. Frank offers the last Chesterfield. Karl takes it. They light from the same match again. Frank says, "You know, I never finished that letter to Rose." Karl says, "I never started one to my wife in Kessel." Frank pulls a folded paper from his pocket, hands it over. "Read this when you get home." Karl opens it. Simple pencil sketch. 3 Shermans circling a tiger. Beneath it, Frank wrote, "For Rose, so she knows why Daddy came home." Karl folds it, careful, tucks it inside his borrowed jacket, says, "I will draw one for Anna. 4 Shermans around a king tiger." Beneath it, I will write, "So she knows why Daddy helped the enemy win." They stand quiet, a long time, listening to the music inside. Yami's voice rising in a hymn about deliverance. Frank says, "Bridges?" Karl says, "Bridges, big ones." Frank says, "First round still on me." Karl says, "First crane on me." They shake hands hard. American grease, German precision. 2 factory men who finally built something that did not kill. Dawn comes. They load on different trucks. Frank heading west to the boats, Carl east to the prisoner compounds before the exchange. Neither looks back, because looking back is for men who still have to fight. They have already won their war. The Texas two-step becomes standard NATO maneuver for 50 years. Cadets at West Point and Sandhurst still study the yellowed pamphlet. The sketches in the dust of the morning 3 Shermans danced around one Tiger and changed everything. And somewhere in Detroit, Rose Novank hangs a simple frame drawing on the wall. 3 little tanks around one big one. Beneath it, in Frank's handwriting, July 26, 1944, the day geometry brought Daddy home. Years rolled like tank tracks. 1950, Frank Novak, Master Sergeant retired, stands on the banks of the Detroit River watching freight ships slide past. Chrysler Arsenal long closed, but the smell of hot steel still lingers in his memory. Rose beside him, gray now, but smiling. 4 grandchildren chasing gulls along the water. A letter came yesterday, postmarked West Germany. Neat engineer handwriting. Inside, a photograph. Karl Brandt, older, thinner, staring on a new Autobahn bridge spanning the Rhine. Cranes in the background, ribbon-cutting ceremony. On the back, Karl wrote, "First bridge done, first round waiting." Frank smiles, folds the letter, slides it into his breast pocket. Same place he kept Rose's letters in Normandy. Same place he kept the fear. Tonight, he and Rose board a Pan Am Clipper to Frankfurt. First vacation ever. The kids think Grandpa has finally taken Grandma dancing. Really, they are keeping a 10-year-old promise. July 1954, Frankfurt Airport. Carl waits at the gate. Tall, still straight, hair gone, silver, wearing a light summer suit. No uniform, no rank. Just an engineer holding a sign that says Novak. Rose spots him first, squeezes Frank's hand. They walk toward each other across the terminal like 2 men who have been walking since 1944. Frank sticks out his hand. Carl ignores it, pulls him into a hard hug, backslapping. Rose laughing through tears. Carl steps back, wipes his eyes, says, "Sergeant, you are late. The first round has been waiting 10 years. Frank grins. Traffic on the Rhine was murder. They drive north in Carl's new Opel Capitan through the rebuilt Ruhr, past factories humming again, past forests grown tall over old battlefields. Anna Brandt waits at the house, white tablecloth on the terrace, Rhine wine cold, sausages warm, children grown now but still calling Uncle Frank, the American who helped Daddy come home. Dinner lasts until midnight. Stories flow like the river. Carl tells how he taught at the new Bundeswehr Academy, refused to let them forget the lesson of 3 Shermans. Frank tells how he trained 2 generations of American tankers at Knox. Every class ends with the same sketch in the blackboard. 3 little tanks, 1 big one, angles over armor. They toast bridges, toast children, toast the day they stopped killing each other. Next morning they drive to Kessel, to the old Henschel factory, now building locomotives. Carl walks Frank through the assembly hall, points to a massive crane boom rolling out on rails, says, "This one lifts 200 tons. Your Sherman weighed 30. This lifts life." Frank runs his hand over the steel, nods slow, feels the weight of 10 years lift off his shoulders. That night in the garden under stars, Carl brings out a bottle of real Calvados, saved since '44. They drink from the same bottle, no cups. Frank says, "Remember when we promised first round on me?" Carl laughs. "I brought the bottle. You brought the war story. We are even." They sit quiet, listening to crickets. Frank says, "You ever think about that morning, July 26th? Carl nods. "Every day, every single day." Frank says, "Me too, but now it feels far away." Carl pours the last of the Calvados, says, "Far away is good. Far away means we built something that lasted longer than the Tigers." Frank raises the bottle to the stars, to Yami, who became a preacher in Iowa, to Rodriguez, who has 8 grandchildren in Laredo, to Chen, who teaches physics at MIT, to Kovacs, who never stops singing Polish songs. They drink silent. The Calvados burns warm like Normandy sun. 1960. Frank and Rose, Carl and Anna, vacation together every summer. Sometimes the Rhine, sometimes Lake Michigan, always bridges, always cranes, always the same toast. Bridges over burning tanks. 1970. Frank gets invited to West Point to lecture cadets. He stands at the podium, pulls out the old yellowed pamphlet, Tactical Bulletin 12, holds it up, says, "Gentlemen, this was written by an American sergeant and a German lieutenant who decided one morning that being smart was better than being dead." The cadets lean forward, hungry for the story. Frank tells them about smoke and angles, about a Bible sketch, about a German who hated stupid orders more than he hated Americans. When he finishes, the room is silent. Then they stand and applaud, not for the victory, but for the choice. 1980. Frank retired again, this time for good. Rose gone now. Cancer took her gently. Carl calls every Sunday from Kessel. They talk cranes, talk grandchildren, talk everything except the war, until one Sunday Carl says, "Frank, I am tired. The doctors say not long." Frank books the next flight. Lands in Frankfurt. Carl thinner, eyes bright, waiting with the wheelchair. Frank pushes him along the Rhine one last time. They stop at the bridge, the first one, the one from the photograph. Carl pats the railing, says, "Solid work, Sergeant. Held 100,000 cars. Never one shot back." Frank laughs, tears in his eyes. Best kind of steel. Carl pulls a small box from his coat. Inside, a Silver Star medal, the one they never figured how to pin on him in '44. Carl says, "They mailed it to me in '52. I saved it for the right day." He pins it on Frank's jacket, crooked, like it should be. Frank looks at it, then at Carl, says, "You crazy kraut, you were supposed to wear this." Carl shakes his head. "No, Sergeant, you earned it. Twice. Once for killing tigers, once for stopping Dottie." They sit quiet, watching barges slide under the bridge. Frank says, "Remember the promise? First round?" Carl smiles, weak, pulls a flask. "Calvados, older than our grandchildren." They drink the last drop together. Frank says, "Bridges?" Carl whispers, "Bridges." And that night, Carl Brandt dies, quiet in his sleep. Frank stays for the funeral, stands between Anna and the children when they lower the coffin. He places the Silver Star on top, says, "Rest easy, Herr Oberleutnant." The dance is finally over. Frank flies home alone, sits on the porch in Detroit watching the river one last time, pulls out the old sketch from Rose's wall. 3 Shermans, 1 Tiger, beneath it now in Carl's neat handwriting, added later, and 1 bridge that carried more than steel. Frank smiles, lights a cigarette. The match flares orange against the dusk, and for the first time since July 26, 1944, he does not taste smoke and cordite, only peace.
The photo tucked careful, the original yellow pamphlet. Tactical Bulletin 12, edges soft from 50 years of hands. Frank pulls it out one last time, runs his finger over the grease pencil lines, drawn in a chateau by a German prisoner and an American sergeant. Lines that saved divisions, lines that ended up in every tank manual, from Patton to Schwarzkopf. He folds it gentle, places it back. Evening comes. Frank sits on the porch. Detroit River, slow and wide like the Rhine used to be. Grandchildren inside, arguing over dinner. He lights the last Chesterfield from the pack Rose bought him in '45. The match flares orange. He inhales slow, tastes apple orchards, Normandy, smoke, Calvados on a terrace, the sound of 3 radials roaring through hedgerows. He exhales, watches the smoke curl up into Michigan sky, and whispers quiet so only the wind hears. "Texas two-step complete, Carl. First round is on me now, partner." He closes his eyes. The sun sets red over the water, like muzzle flash, like Calvados, like the morning 3 Shermans danced around 1 Tiger and changed the world forever. Frank Novak dies peaceful that night in his sleep, dreamful of bridges spanning clean water, cranes lifting hope instead of hate, engines humming not in anger but in building. The funeral is small. Jaime preaches from the book of David and Goliath. Chen reads the physics of traverse rates. Rodriguez, grown old, brings his 8 grandchildren. Kovac's son sings the Polish songs his father taught him. They bury Frank with full honors, Silver Star finally straight on his chest. In the coffin pocket, the original Bible page Jaime tore out in '44. The little drawing, 3 Shermans, 1 Tiger, and beneath it, in faded pencil, July 26, 1944, the day geometry beat monsters, and enemies became brothers. At the graveside, the honor guard fires 3 volleys, the bugler plays taps, and somewhere across the ocean, on a Rhine bridge that never knew war, a plaque is unveiled. Simple bronze words placed there by Karl's children, in memory of Technical Sergeant Frank Novak and Oberleutnant Karl Brandt, who proved that the shortest distance between enemies is a straight line of common sense, and the longest-lasting victory is built with steel that carries people home. The Texas two-step lives on every time tanks move fast and smart, every time soldiers choose brains over bravado, every time 2 men from opposite sides decide the math of living is better than the math of dying. And on quiet nights, when the wind moves right over Normandy fields or Michigan porches or Rhine bridges, you can almost hear 3 continental radials roaring through the bocage, 1 German 88 trying to turn too slow, and 2 old friends laughing across the years. Bridges, Sergeant, bridges.